Rome is sending signals that can alter the future of the customary Mass. While there are still many unknowns, some people are finding surprising rays of optimism amid odd rumors and subtly stated remarks from the new Pope. Maybe after years of limitations and divisions, a sea change is now approaching. To learn more about the implications of this, stay tuned. Following the Second Vatican Council, the Church started on a road that still causes division today. The basic idea of ecclesiology, the idea of what the Church is and how it ought to live and govern itself, has changed drastically. This modification was not a minor detail. Rather, it paved the way for a number of doctrinal and liturgical shifts. The ability to alter the Mass emerged from that point on, substituting a new form that forced itself as normal for a rite that had for generations ensured stability and unity. Even though what had always been normal abruptly became remarkable, many traditionalist Catholics believe that this is where the crisis started. A series of decisions, rather than a single document, caused the Church's unity to break, and each action made the division more obvious. Ars Laetitia's moral and pastoral transparency came first, followed by the dubious handling of events hosted at the Vatican with dubious attendees. Lastly, the well-known talks with Eugenio Scalfari, in which a pope even said things that many people found disturbing and even heretical. The credibility of the Church has been damaged by all of this, according to an increasing number of believers, who also point out that the schism has roots more deeper in the new post-conciliar ecclesiology than it did with traditionalist custodes. From this perspective, the liturgical issue is merely the outward manifestation of a far more serious issue. There is a growing demand for a definitive statement regarding the future of the traditional liturgy, and the Pope is the center of attention. Several indications point to the possibility of a reconsideration of the limitations imposed by traditionalist custodes. There are rumors that the Roman Curer had an atmosphere of expectation, as though the Church community was paused in anticipation of a decision that might alter the balance of power. The Catholic Herald gathered a comment credited to Cardinal Gambetti, who added a few but important words in response, adding even more intrigue to the matter. "You'd better not answer this. We were informed that we would await the Holy Father's choice." Although it is a quick remark, there are many ramifications. It affirms, on the one hand, that the issue is far from resolved. Alternatively, it highlights that the Pope alone has the last say and that the cardinals should not rush or preempt. If previous cardinals had engaged in more direct stances or personal remarks, Gambetti has made a completely different choice, despite having different internal sensitivities. This attitude indicates that the carer is waiting for a choice that cannot be avoided or disregarded. The same questions are still being asked by the faithful in this expectant stillness. Will the Pope relax restrictions on the ancient Mass, or will he uphold the stringent stance that his predecessor had already taken? Cardinal Mauro Gambetti is a unique member of the Vatican leadership. He has not taken the conventional route, which goes to the cardinalate after first becoming an episcopal official. His promotion to cardinal was actually a direct decision by Pope Francis, who chose to give him significant responsibilities despite his youth, making him one of the College of Cardinals' youngest members. He has always distinguished himself from the Order of Friars Minor Convention by maintaining a sober demeanor and avoiding the power struggles that permeate the hallowed mansions. In his first interview, Leo XIV made it apparent that he values tradition and has no intention of inflaming the liturgy. Front, if you value our outreach service and think that honesty and openness are important, please buy a super thank you. Every piece of material necessitates devotion, research, and hard labor, and we are fully self-funded. With your aid, we can keep up this mission. Much obliged. After reading these claims, the idea of revising the limitations on the ancient Mass becomes more and more likely. Restoring peace to an ecclesiastical front that has seen years of turmoil would actually be the least contentious course of action and the most consistent with the decision to relax the constraints. The crux of the issue for many traditional Catholics is not only whether the Latin Mass survives, but also if it is supported by doctrinal coherence. A priceless legacy is represented by the old liturgy. However, if it is not accompanied by a return to theological clarity, it runs the risk of becoming a solitary island and an artistic gesture that has lost its original power. People who view the post-conciliar reforms as a genuine deterioration of the Catholic faith, rather than merely a ceremonial shift, are beginning to feel this anxiety. Traditionist custodes, as seen from this angle, were only another blow to the Church's unity. which had already been weakened by earlier declarations and actions. However, the issue is much more serious even if many people want it to be abolished. Any compromises on the liturgy run the risk of becoming brittle and transient. If the doctrinal problem is not resolved, the ancient Mass might regain its original splendor. To put it another way, the distance between what is celebrated and what is believed, however, can only deepen if the realities of faith are marginalized or relativized. There will be a major turning point in Rome once more. Cardinal Raymond Leo Burke will participate in the Samorum Pontificum pilgrimage by celebrating a solemn pontifical Mass in St. Peter's. This event was the pinnacle of an event that drew devotees from all over the world for years before. It was abruptly outlawed in the past 2 years. Those who support the traditional liturgy can only find encouragement in the return of such a solemn festival to the core of Christianity. The October 25th date will have great symbolic meaning. It serves as both a public testimony and a ritual. The traditional Mass has not been abolished and is still celebrated, even in the most significant basilica in Catholicism, in spite of the prohibitions and limitations. This is seen by many believers as a tacit but powerful protest against policies that have attempted to marginalize the Latin liturgy. As someone who has always upheld tradition, Burke consequently ends up serving as the spokesperson for an unrelenting resistance. How do you feel? If you enjoyed the video, please leave a comment. May God bless you. The future of the traditional Mass may change as a result of the signals Rome is sending. Even though there are still a lot of unknowns, some individuals are finding unexpected hope amidst strange stories and the new Pope's subtle statements. Perhaps a radical shift is on the horizon after years of restrictions and divisions. Stay tuned to find out more about the ramifications of this. The Church embarked on a path that continues to cause discord today after the Second Vatican Council. The fundamental concept of ecclesiology, or what the Church is and how it should live and govern itself, has undergone significant development. This change was significant because it cleared the path for other doctrinal and liturgical changes. From then on, the power to change the Mass appeared, replacing a rite that had guaranteed stability and unity for generations with a new form that imposed itself as the norm. Many traditionalist Catholics think that the crisis began here, despite the fact that what had always been usual suddenly became extraordinary. The Church's unity was broken by a succession of decisions rather than a single document, and each step made the schism more apparent. First came the moral and pastoral transparency of Amoris Laetitia, then the questionable management of events held at the Vatican with questionable guests. Last but not least are the well-known conversations with Eugenio Scalfari, in which a pope even made statements that many people believed to be heretical and unsettling. A growing number of Christians claim that all of this has undermined the Church's legitimacy, and that the schism has deeper roots in the new post-concilia ecclesiology than it did with conservative custodes. According to this viewpoint, the liturgical problem is only the external expression of a far more significant problem. The Pope is in the forefront of the growing call for a clear statement about the future of the traditional liturgy. A number of signs suggest that the restrictions imposed by traditionalist custodes may be re-examined. Rumor has it that there was a sense of expectation during the Roman Cure, as if the church community was waiting for a decision that could change the balance of power. Cardinal Gombetti added a few crucial words to the comment, which the Catholic Herald attributed to him, making the situation even more intriguing. "You should not respond to this. We were told that we would wait for the decision made by the Holy Father." Despite being a brief statement, there are numerous implications. On the one hand, it confirms that there is still much work to be done. On the other hand, it emphasizes that the cardinal should not hurry or preempt, and that the Pope alone has the final say. Gombetti has made a very different decision than previous cardinals, who had taken more direct positions or made more intimate statements. This attitude shows that the carer is waiting for a decision that cannot be avoided or ignored, even though they have distinct internal sensitivities. In this waiting silence, the devout continue to ask the same questions. Will the Pope maintain the rigid position that his predecessor had already adopted? Or will he loosen limits on the ancient Mass? One special member of the Vatican leadership is Cardinal Mauro Gombetti. He has not followed the traditional path, which begins as an episcopal official and ends with the cardinalate. Pope Francis really made the choice to promote him to cardinal, making him one of the youngest members of the College of Cardinals, by giving him important responsibilities in spite of his youth. By staying sober and avoiding the power battles that abound in the revered mansions, He has consistently set himself apart from the lesser convention of the Order of Friar. Leo XIV made it clear in his first interview that he respects tradition and does not intend to stir up trouble on the liturgy front. Please buy a super thank you if you like our outreach service and believe that transparency and honesty are crucial. Every piece of content requires commitment, investigation, and work, and we are entirely self-sufficient. We can continue this endeavor with your assistance. Thank you very much. The possibility of changing the restrictions on the ancient Mass increases. After reading these assertions, the least controversial course of action and the one that would be most compatible with the decision to loosen the restrictions would be to restore peace to an ecclesiastical front that has suffered years of unrest. For many Orthodox Catholics, the key question is not just whether the Latin Mass endures, but also if it is backed by doctrinal clarity. The ancient liturgy represents a precious legacy. However, it faces the danger of becoming a lonely island and an artistic gesture that has lost its original impact if it is not accompanied by a restoration to theological clarity. This worry is starting to spread among many who see the post-conciliar reforms as more than just a ceremonial change, but as a real decline in Catholicism. From this perspective, traditionist custodes were just another blow to the Church's unity, which had already been undermined by previous statements and deeds. Even though many people wish to see it eliminated, the problem is far more serious. If the doctrinal issue is not fixed, any agreements on the liturgy could become fragile and temporary. In other words, the old Mass may return to its former glory. However, if the realities of faith are suppressed or relativized, the gap between what is celebrated and what is believed will only widen. Once again, Rome will witness a significant turning point. Cardinal Raymond Leoberg will celebrate a solemn pontifical Mass in St. Peter's as part of the Samorum Pontificum trip, before it was suddenly banned in the last 2 years. This event was the apex of an event that attracted followers from all over the world for years. The return of such a serious holiday to the heart of Christianity can only serve as a source of hope for those who support the traditional liturgy. The date of October 25th will have significant symbolic significance. It functions as a ritual as well as a public testimony. Despite the restrictions and prohibitions, the traditional Mass has not been eliminated and is still celebrated, even in the most important basilica in Catholicism. Many Christians view this as an implicit but potent protest against measures that have sought to isolate the Latin liturgy. Burke, as someone who has always maintained tradition, thereby becomes the mouthpiece for an uncompromising resistance. How are you feeling? Would you kindly leave a comment if you liked the video?